You don't have to agree with me in order to be part of my church. Hi, I'm Reverend Beth, pastor and teacher at the Hancock Congregational Church in Hancock, New Hampshire. And today I want to talk about true community because it's not made up of people who all agree on everything. I've been thinking a lot about this because, to be honest, some of my colleagues are struggling in that they are preaching on issues of justice in a way that aligns with their belief systems and in a way that feels true and authentic to what they believe the gospel calls them to preach and how the gospel calls them and Jesus calls them to act. And some people in their congregations don't agree with that and they're leaving. And I struggle with both of those things. Because one, I don't think we should leave if we disagree, right? And two, I do think that as pastors, we have to recognize that there are going to be people in our congregations who don't agree with us. And we need to foster a sense of identity and community that has enough space for that. I have had this happen in every congregation that I have pastored, where I have said something that people don't agree with or that is in contrast to their perspective, oftentimes maybe their political leanings, and they leave the community. And I really, really wish that they wouldn't. I wish that people understood that just because our congregation calls itself a progressive church doesn't mean that there isn't space for people who don't identify as progressive and who are there to get spiritual sustenance and that they're able to find spiritual sustenance and a place where they can learn more about their faith and about practicing their faith and not agree with everything the pastor says. I wish people would come up to me. I love when people come up to me after I preach a sermon and people say, "That really made me think." I also love when people come up to me and say, "I didn't agree with that," or "I'm not sure I agree with that," or "That made me uncomfortable." And then we have a conversation about it, because that is practicing church. That is doing what Jesus asks us to do. Jesus did not limit himself. He was very clear on his stances, of his decisions, of his beliefs about justice and about how to act in the world in a way that aligned with God's desires for the world. And yet, in his community were tax collectors and the people that were subject to the whims of the tax collectors, which were often sort of lining their own pockets and not just. His messages were for not only the poor, but those who were oppressing the poor. He spoke to crowds that included all kinds of people with all different perspectives and all different layers of power. Now, were they often weighted more towards the poor and the marginalized because Jesus spoke more clearly to them? Yes, absolutely. But Jesus never said, "You have to agree with me to follow me." And he told stories and he asked questions to get people to think, and he engaged. Pharisees came up and said, "Well, why are you doing this?" And he didn't just say, "I'm the Son of God, that's why. Do what I say." Instead, he had conversations with them and he told parables and he tried to open people's eyes. But he never said, "You have to agree with me in order to follow me," or you have to agree with me to be part of this community. So I hope that if you have somehow found this video or you somehow have heard about our church and you do not agree with me when I preach from the pulpit, that you do not agree if a person makes an announcement about an event that is for an issue of justice that seems to align with a particular political party, that you won't say, oh, I'm not accepted here. I hope that you will come in to our congregation and be open enough to engage with people who are different from you. And I hope that if you are a progressive person, that you will not come to our church expecting it to be a safe place. And I don't mean safe from harm, because yes, we do try to create a place that is safe from harm. But it is not a place that is safe in that everyone will agree with you. Because we cannot practice true Christianity and live out true community without being pushed and tugged and molded and forced to grow by those who see the world differently than we do. Because they too are children of God. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and that you might think about joining us if you are in or near Hancock, New Hampshire. And if not, that you will subscribe and keep following along with us in these videos, both of my sermons and my midweek moments and any other videos we happen to post. All right, be well.